Hi, we're just going to take a look at this and digest it. Heroic nudity. Why biblical scriptures were altered to pass the Thracian Balkan Greek sniff test. This is Lynn Schnebley with Educating with Wisdom, and I'm the ambassador for heaven's creating and protecting goddesses and archangels over life. Let's just come out of this picture that I have on the front and come into me for a moment. We're going to be looking at how the Bible and other cultures in the world pass the sniff test of these serpent-worshipping, dragon-worshipping groups of people that came down from the north, and whether you were the Hurry Sarasvati, whether you're in the Indus Valley, or whether you're in the Minoans or other Hurrian areas, how all of a sudden this heroic figure, celibate priest, the entire diminishing of the real female divine. I don't mean some slut goddess that's always, subjecting you to war and having oaths. I mean somebody really involved in life here. And how this is all altered as these people from the north begin descending upon civilization. Now, I've said before that the Harappan that were in India, there are areas in the Levant, in Syria. I guess it's Yorkesh. I'll find it again. The Minoans all had things like indoor plumbing. We're looking at 2100 before then, and how even the Greeks didn't have that. The Greeks were not the great civilizers because they're very much a part of this barbaric, vulgar group that's coming in from the Balkans and coming down. So let's just come out of this and we're going to see what happened to the Bible and why these changes were made. Like nude prophets, David having to run around nude, a nude Jesus, basically a crucified individual. And I'm not sure how far I want to take it into the Jesus, but it really does meet their needs. So let's come out of me for a moment and take a peek at this. Let's come out of this. Oh, we don't have to see this. Oh, I keep coming out of this. This is where we had the chapel picture. And here we go. Pictures of the Sistine Chapel, the Thracian god. Now let's take a look at the Thracian god here. He's a biggie. He's got to run around naked too. There's one of these that I had, the heroic. Let's see if this goes back. Heroic nudity. Heroic nudity. Oh yes, isn't that lovely? That's so good. Okay, so it's not just, it's the Thracians, it's the Greeks, it's the Olympics, it's just that, boy, it's the Celts. They just love their men naked. Yeah. And out there in public, yep, it's all really good. Let's make sure we understand it's all good. It's great. Now, the Jews and the Hindus prior to this period of time didn't really get off on this. This was not, when you look at pictures of the Babylonians, I'm talking about the early Babylonians, the Sumerians, the Hurrians. We weren't looking at pictures of naked men. Just really looking at naked men. And of course the Vatican is very much involved in this. We love our naked men. Yeah. And we like seeing naked men with teenage boys, and we just really love seeing these pictures of, look at, she has to wear her clothes, but he's a naked man. And then we also have pictures of Apollo as a drag queen doing a harp, because Apollo did not bring you music, and we've got all kinds of things of Apollo as a drag queen. But we really love our naked. We like it because St. John the Baptist is naked much of the time, and we have Jesus who dies on a cross, basically kind of naked too and stripped down, and it's all good. So let's come out of this now that we've had a good, and they had it all over the place. They had the Hermes in Athens, which was a statue by your door that showed Hermes, just a flat face Hermes with a body and an erection. I mean, they just loved looking at the penis, and the Romans loved looking at erect penises and phalluses. And the Romans had, of course, Nero, that then became the Colossus in Rome, and the Christian fathers loved this huge, basically 100+ foot Colossus in Rome of a basically naked sun god. They all liked it. He was naked, Serapis was naked. This is coming back. I knew that this whole dragon Thracian group was coming back. Yeah, I knew it, felt it. Yeah, they're all coming back. That's Romania. That's where Charles is. All right. So, what to do? So, the Hurrians, in their original story, the person doesn't become like in the image of God until they know to put their clothes on. I've already shown the Göbekli Tepe, the statues. The individuals have their hands by their tummies, and they have skins in front of them. They're not showing nudity, normal looking animals. But there's something about the Celts coming together with the Phrygians and the Illyrians and the Thracians, and there's just, you know, because they're constantly going to war, and they have a lot of single men, because the married, once the warrior gets to a certain age, they've accrued this huge polygamous harem that they're working with, and that leaves their sons either being sold into slavery, because they sold their children into slavery, or their sons could become a holy priest who shuns women, and of course always puts women in their place, but they shun women. That's the Kitsti. We're going to see that. That's where we got our priest from, that and the Phrygian galley. All right, the galley loved Jesus. And the Essens were castrated very much for the most part, and they went in and became priests, and they took over women's temples, like the temple of Artemis of Ephesus. Although there were female priestesses there, the head priest, who rotated in and out every year, every few years, they had to be celibate. And so there is this whole notion that, you know, celibate men will take over real women's goddesses roles over life and these things. They're very much into the human man. They have actually, the entire system of this Thracian Abrahamic religion, which goes into Hinduism, by the way, because they have a Thracian, and the Buddhist, of course. The Buddhists have they're enclosed men, but then the Buddhist men could be polygamist, and of course Thailand, you can sell your children into prostitution, you know, a whole slave trade going on in there. And so this is all very, very Thracian. It is. And believe it or not, until that era of what we call the Aryan, 2,000 years ago, which is really not Aryan, until that comes into being and the Thracians are coming down, people did not act like that. Not even the native people. Native people didn't act like that. When you look at hunting and gathering societies, they don't act like that. There are a few really violent hunting and gathering societies. They don't grow very big. But generally speaking, nobody acts like that. No, they got that from someplace. Yeah. So, let's come out of me again, and let's begin to look at what happened to the Bible, because what happened is after Alexander the Great, who is Macedonian, and they're one of the Thracian leagues, and his teacher was Aristotle, Thracian, put women down like nobody's business. Okay, so because he knew what he was talking about, and he goes over to Egypt, doesn't have any original thoughts. When he comes back, he sees this huge phallus. Of course, it's men, and you know, some of the other things with huge phallus, and says to himself, oh, what I can do with them. Okay, so, but the Thracians have already been working. They came with the sea people. They were here before. They came even before the sea people. But the sea people, they were full of them. Remember, you're a boy, your father is polygamous. He has all these children. His daughters can be sold into sex slavery if he can't find a good match for them. And his sons can be sold into sex slavery, or they can go and become priests. Or they can go and become warriors. You know, it's like, just like Islam. Okay, so let's come in and understand that this has come, and not only did they come as the sea people, not only were they encroaching beforehand, and I've already discussed, that's why the Matini are there, that's why the Hurrian have come over from India, that's why they're all together with the Hurrian and the Hattian, and they're trying to keep Egypt in check with what it's doing religiously and what it's doing socially. They're acting together. And they know that it's coming down. It's just a matter of time before this horrible horde comes down. So it wasn't, people had their clothes on. I mean, when you see pictures of Tisha Ben Adad and things like that, they always have their clothes on. They do. It's just these horde from the north, you know? And I'm from the north. And then, of course, there's the Africans. They have their own issues going on, but it's, you know, just this horde. So let's take a look at how the Jews, or whoever was manipulating the structure of that scripture, handled it, because this is how the scripture was translated from the Hebrew into Greek. And when they did that, they tossed out the older Hebrew scriptures, or the older Hurrian scriptures, depending upon what we're looking at, because there's so much Hurrian in the Hebrew scriptures that we have from about 1000 AD. So let's come out of this and take a peek at how they put this heroic nude hero into the scriptures. 1 Samuel, Isaiah 22, and Micah 1:8. Now, the first thing I should mention, the first thing they do is in Genesis, is they make sure that they condemn the woman who knows that she should be wearing clothes when she's there publicly in front of God, who is going to bring you agriculture. Remember, the Thracians and the Greeks, they didn't do their own farming. They always made sure the agra person, which was originally Aries, the Harries, did their farming for them. They were slaves. Okay, you had to be a slave for them, and they took them in as slaves. They took their women, they took their property. That's what they did. You know? Okay. So so even though they knew that they needed agriculture, it was beneath them. They wanted to go to war and take and greed and all those other things. That was really their thing. They flat out said that doing manual work was so beneath them, but going to war, raping, pillaging, and plundering was right up their alley. Yeah. Yep, that's it. Yep, that's who we're related to. That's our genetic material. So we have this going on here. So let's go in and see what Micah 1:8 looks like. Of course, we have Jesus hanging with long hair. And I love Jesus, but I mean, that was a heyday for the galley who ran around. Some of them castrated, begging for money. They were, I've discussed them before. We should just have something about these priests that were at that point. So let's read about this. Now we can see where Micah and Isaiah and Amos have an awful lot of borrowing. And I've already mentioned that in Amos and a few others, you always know also when they're bowing down, when everybody has to have a good wine feast. So we know that the Gospel of John, with the wine feast at the marriage of Canaan, and the nameless mother, is right up this Greek Thracian line. We've got Jesus's mother, the no-name woman, who shows up at the crucifixion to see her quasi-naked son, a heroic hero. She also doesn't have a name, just like in the Galatian epistles. Sarah doesn't have a name there either, although she's supposed to be important. Anyway, I'm digressing, and let me come into Micah. Micah, was it 2:8 or 1:8? I'm so busy talking. 1:8. I thought so. Now these are all going on at the same time. So let's look at 1:8. So Micah and all the graving images and all the images of her, they wrote this the other way around. So it makes it easier to read. But you still have to then linguistically go through and check all the linguistics and look at what the etiology is of the word. And that's where you find all the oopsies going around. And all the carvings of her, and they shall be pounded to pieces, and all the thieves of her, they shall be burned in fire. And all the griefs of her, it should be hard labor, griefs of her. That same word is used in Genesis 3. I shall place desolation, that from fee of prostitute she gathered, unto fee of prostitute they shall return. And on this I will wail, and I shall howl, and I shall go looted, and naked. I shall make wailing as jackals and mourning as daughters of ostrich. And he's really talking, that sound is almost the sound that the red dragon would make on their banner that they would use. So he's going naked. All right, let's put this on pause. But I'm going to go in and do the Isaiah. Now these are contemporaries, and there's an awful lot of Thracian ideology going on in Isaiah. There is some stuff that would be Hurrian, and you can see that they're trying to put the prophecy in there, and I can point this out at some point, at some later point. He is the son of Amos. I would say that he is literally the son of Amos. He's doing something very similar, and in the era, the she, he spoke Yahweh in hand of Isaiah, and this is in the era, the she. It is very similar to what Daniel is saying in Daniel 12. And I'm so glad that people are pointing out that they feel that is a forgery, because I would agree. Not only is it earlier from the Amorites, it actually goes into an earlier Hurrian prophecy that predates 1400 BC. So in the era, the she, and you unloose the sackcloth from waist of you, and sandals of you, and you shall put off from feet of you, and he is doing so, and he's going forward naked and barefoot. In the same area, we have women who have too much economic power, who will go to a man, and 7 women will grab the same man and say, please make us your legitimate wife and we will produce all of our own food by ourselves. There's some real prophecy in this. The prophecy has been split up and put into different books, but this is a contemporary of Micah, and I would say there's a great deal of them together. Again, we're dealing with nakedness, but in this case, because this is a prophet and Micah is a prophet, we are looking at heroic nakedness. They're just not killing people in the same way. Let's come back now and look at 1 Samuel 9:24. This is going to be Saul. Then we're going to look at David. Oh, what did... 1 Samuel 19:24. Okay. Whoopsie daisy. We're talking about Saul. And this is Saul in front of Samuel in order to become legitimate. Remember, this Eva, or this should actually be she. They gender bended this. I've said this before. And he is stripping, moreover, he clothes of him, and he is prophesying, moreover, he to faces of Samuel, and he is lying down, fallen naked, all of the day, and all of the night, so that they are saying, moreover, Saul in the prophets. So Saul is being prophetic because he's taken off his clothes, he's stripped down. Yeah. By the way, Isaiah was supposed to have been running around that way for 3 years, like the people didn't stop him, right? Okay, so they feed in. This has to pass the Greeks that are in charge of your area, and I guess it happened in Alexandria, or in this Greek area. It happened, and they had to rewrite the Bible, put it into Greek, and make it work for the Greeks. So they added these things to it. We have King David, which is really awful. He goes to bring the ark, which we know is kind of made up, but he goes to bring the ark in at first to a threshing, a threshing. Now, why the threshing? Because all of the threshing floors in this area were designated to Haba. And he gets knocked down like nobody's business. In fact, he ends up getting all kinds of problems, deaths, and destruction going on because of his disrespect to Haba. So the threshing floors, like the wheat and everything, is attributed to Haba, or Sela. By the way, modern Hebrew has taken the goddess Sela and has just made it as a pronoun for his or her in Hebrew, and it's complete blasphemy. That's why you're suffering so. Anyway, let's come down, because this is really cool. And he is becoming that they marched, carrying coffer of Yahweh 6 steps, and he is sacrificing bull and fatling. And David frisking, meaning he's jumping all around, and in all of strengths to faces of Yahweh. And David being girded with just, and this is actually an ephod. It means a cloak that you must be wearing. An ephod of linen. So he has just an ephod covering up, which is like a loin, which is being treated as a loincloth, so that you cover yourself up. And David and all of his house of Israel once up sign coffer of Yahweh in shouting and in sounds of trumpet. And he becomes the coffer of Yahweh, entering city of David. And Michal, we know Michal, the daughter of Saul, she gazes through the window and she's seeing the King David prancing and frisking to faces of Yahweh, and she is despising to him in her heart. Well, why would she not? That's her husband, and he's already given her such a hard time. He has been terrible to her, and he has other wives. And he can only be king because he's married to her. He cannot be king unless he's married to her. And she's being that kind of disrespectful to the chief goddess, because this area was Hurrian and Hattian, and he's being completely disrespectful for what's going on. And they are bringing to coffer of Yahweh, and they are putting him in place of him in midst of tent, which he pitched for David, and he is offering up David to faces of Yahweh. Why faces of people? I don't know. And peace. Shalom does not mean peace. All right. This is what's interesting. Let's go back, and as soon as David, and then he goes and he gives, like a good Leo, he goes and he gives everybody something to drink and something to eat, and everybody's been celebrating. So David then comes back to the house, and remember, he can only be king because he's related to Micah, and he's returning David to bless the household of him, and she is coming forth, Michal, daughter of Saul, to meet David, and she is saying, what? He was glorious the day king of Israel, who he exposed the day to eyes of maidservants, of servants of him, as to expose one of the inane ones. That he uncovered himself to the maidens, jumping around, frisking around, you know, and this is supposed to be religious? Are you kidding? And he is saying, David to Michal, to faces of Yahweh, who he chooses in me from father of you and from any of the household, to instruct of me governor over people of Yahweh, over Israel, I gamble, to faces of Yahweh, I gamble. That's the music he plays. And I am light esteemed further from this, and I become low in eyes of me, and with the maid servants whom you said, with them I shall be glorified. And then Micah becomes barren. Let's see if I can find this. So what's just happened is that he has brought the Ark of the Covenant, which is really supposed to be about the rainbow. And the rainbow is about the last destruction, why you're destroyed. And God is not really happy with human beings, but didn't destroy you again because of the rest of the life that's on the planet. You're not in that position anymore because you're so destructive. So the Ark of the Covenant, if it existed, has this information about it. And there is David jumping around with just a loincloth on, in front of maidservants, bringing things down to the threshing floor, being totally disrespectful to God. And Michal says something to him. So she should. She is the chief consort wife. There you go. And he says, I may make a fool of myself in my own eyes, or I may even make a fool of myself in yours. But the chicks loved me. So he wasn't really interested in God. He was interested in whether or not the chicks loved him. I'm sorry about the shadowing that's going on here. And finally, let's come out of this. Now let's see, I did that. I did this. And then I don't want to be too sacrilegious, because when you talk about somebody dying on a cross, and of course Jesus was revolutionary, and it's more than because he died on a cross. I'm here because of the laws and the other kinds of things that he was involved in. But, and they don't really believe in Jesus, so that's a problem for me. But if we think of, for those priests who were nonviolent and supposed to be celibate, as he was, because who's going to go out and do all those things if you think you may not live? Okay, there's a different issue going on here. Been there, seen it, done it. Then to have him put up on that cross and to bring his lineage back through David, he's there on that loincloth, up on a cross, with long hair, just like the galley, celibate. You can see that this whole priesthood, this crazy priesthood, this Thracian, Celtic, Galley, Phrygian priesthood, just really embraced what was going on. And then, of course, we have Constantine with his great big Constantine the Great and Constantinople, and he just co-opts Christianity and forms it into his image so that it can be what he needs it to be for the empire. And all the Thracians and everything still exist, all through Christianity and through Judaism. So I'm literally here teasing out what happened to us. And I'm doing it for the people of India as well. For these people, I am teasing out this Balkan, Celtic, Thracian, teasing it out so that we have the Hatti and the Hurrian, or the Hari, the holy people, to get us back to understand what that message was about before the invasion of the body snatchers came. There you go. Because we are destroying the earth, and we have destroyed ourselves, and we have their celibate transgender people that are destroying women and still taking over our lives and terrorizing regular men too. I'm trying to tease all of this out for you. And for me, I had to tease it out for me to see what I was looking at. There we go. So, heroic nakedness, that's where it came from. And the picture of men with this huge penis and a flail, that's just, really retarded. It is retarded. It's so retarded. Okay, here we go. All these pictures. Oh, I forgot to say, namaste and God bless. Oh, before I close, and I'm going to bring up Moses with his red dragon on a staff, or his flaming copper dragon on a staff, and how that is a nod to them as well. But that's a different story. So, again, namaste.